Hello, friends, and welcome to Gamers Gab, the podcast by gamers for gamers. As always, it's Artsy from the Artsy Gamer, and we're continuing the series of deep diving a number of topics in content creation within the realm of gaming. Joining me today are Zach from Switchforce and Pat from Nintendo Talk, YouTuber powerhouses when it comes to all things Nintendo, but specifically Animal Crossing New Horizons and Switch content. So, gentlemen, how the heck are you?
I'm good. I guess I'll start. Yes. I'm Patrick from Nintendo Talk. I'm doing good. This is great. Zach, little hooligan here, but I'm excited to talk today. So thank you for having me.
Doing really good as well. First haircut in 11 weeks. So got nice and fresh for you here.
Oh, man.
I'm from Ghost Robo and Switchforce and Nook Talk. Pat and I have our own little show as well,
which will obviously be linked below for those who live under a rock. So,
thank you.
So, gentlemen, the reason why I was wanting you two to talk about the aspect of success in content creation is because it's very clear that the both of you are successful on YouTube. When it comes to community, when it comes to sponsorships, when it comes to making it as a living. But what I'd like to do is get started with the Merriam-Webster definition of what success is, which is very, very open-ended. It's like, it's the fact of getting or achieving wealth, respect, or fame, or the correct or desired result in an attempt. But I would argue that success, even in content creation, even when you have certain markers, are very personal. So let's start this conversation by asking what your definition of success in content creation is, and whether or not your brands presently meet that definition.
Very, very good question. I can take it first. I think, I started YouTube back in 2010, and I think once I started kind of gaining momentum, my definition of success was like to just be as big as possible, to just, push it as far as I possibly could. And frankly, it was a very tough thing to chase because as you grow and as you, compare yourself to channels with 1,000 subscribers and then 10,000, then 100,000, then, luckily for me, I was up to 1 million. It's like, there's never an end. It just keeps going. And then with Switchforce, I was always comparing Switchforce back to that. The peak that I reached with Ghost Robo, if Switchforce wasn't in that same area, it felt kind of a bummer a lot of the time. Like, okay, like, have I peaked? Have I hit my, ultimate? And comparing against myself, it was tricky. I would say that luckily my channel now is what I would consider success back then and now, because I had to reframe it a bit. And it wasn't until I reframed that things kind of opened up. I kind of let go of like the numbers thing and kind of made the success more about how do I feel about it and how am I making other people feel about it, and kind of receiving the feedback from. It sounds almost counterintuitive, but I think I was so in my head about like, am I successful to my standards, that I needed to kind of sort of look around and see like there's people that enjoy watching these videos every darn morning. There's people that are writing me and saying you made me smile when I was sad, and like that. Getting that feedback is like, okay, like this is a success more than I'm letting myself feel it to be. And that was really helpful and powerful for me to not have it just be this constant number chase, because it's never ending. And as I'm sure Pat can attest, like you can find somebody who's doing a little bit better constantly. There's always somebody doing a little bit better. And if you keep making those comparisons, I think your definition of success will be a nightmarish grind that doesn't have an endpoint.
Or fun, right?
Yes, or fun. Sure. Mm-hmm. That's important sometimes too. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. A lot of what Zach says, I agree with. I mean, for me, success has been like goal oriented. So, when I first started out, I'm like, all right, let's get 100 subscribers. Let's get people watching. Let's get people commenting. And then, now it's different. Now it's like, I want to put out a certain number of videos a week. I want, interaction, members, things like that. But, success is always changing. I'm kind of humbled that I'm even in this conversation, because like a year and a half ago, 2 years, I'd be like, bro, there's like 100 people watching me. But I feel like in the grand scheme of things, in like the big picture, I'm probably like a third of the way of where I want to be. Mm-hmm. And that might shock some people. I mean, I feel like there's different stages of channels, and you have to really break through. I would say like the 50 to 100K mark where you're quote like established. Like I mean, if you think about it, 100K, those type of numbers, that's really small still in the grand scheme of like YouTube. But I'm getting there. Like I feel good where I am now. Like, you know, community wise, I'm big in communities, and yeah, but it's ever changing, and that's kind of how I want to structure it. I never want to wake up one day and be like, I'm good. I'm like, I'm success. Like, I'm always looking to grow and improve.
So, I for the viewers at home, I was telling these two lovely gentlemen about deep diving back into their dirty laundry of their early content, and how you truly have evolved. Not only your content, but your mannerisms, your personality really shifted. And so I'm really curious, were your definitions of success the same? Did you have different goals when you started versus where you are now?
Yeah. Oh, it's way different. You want to start?
Sure.
I'll
No, you go. You go. Go
Okay,
ahead.
so yeah, I mean, I shifted because when I first started, my channel used to be called R Wing Attack. So it was like a Star Fox reference. And you know, I'm just making videos, so that was my username on YouTube for years. So, you know, I didn't really think of it. There was a point pretty early on where I'm like, you know what, I should give a go to this, and that's where I changed to Nintendo Talk. And like, you know, you start branding, which I didn't think, you know, was gonna be a thing. So at first, the reason why I started the channel is because none of my friends talk about Nintendo. I have Xbox friends. I have friends that don't play video games. So I'm like, I want someone to hear me. And then actually, I was watching a channel. I still watch him, Rula to Review, and he was doing he does like Q&As, and you can like submit questions for him. And when like, if he takes your question, the question goes on the screen. So it like I just remember like my name and then the question, and he read out my name and question, and I was like, that's the coolest thing. Like I'm a part of
That
a
tastes the
conversation.
same.
So I was like, we gotta chase that. So that's when it started. But yeah, I would say the first shift was branding. I mean, we all know how important branding is, like logos, names, things like that. And you can't be a channel that it's like, you know, gamer121 guy, like
Way to
you
call me
have
out,
okay,
guys. Way to call me
you
out.
have gamer, but like, you know, numbers and weird things and things that people aren't going to remember, like, you know. So that was the biggest shift for me, was branding.
Okay. Yeah.
I think
Go ahead. Sorry.
I was going to say, I think, you know, it's also evolved not just with my YouTube timeline, but with age as well. I'm 32 years old now, or I will be in a couple weeks. I know I don't
Namesies.
look that. Everyone thinks I'm like 23 or whatever, but I think just like your worldview kind of shifts. You know, when I first started, I was very shy, very, you know, to myself, and so just having people like my Instagram photo was super exciting, and having people think I was cool was super exciting. And it's still, you know, obviously I appreciate all the love, but I guess now it's much more like, personally, I do feel content currently. Like I'm still growing my channels, but I do wake up and I feel like, okay, I'm happy with where I'm at. I'm happy with where my life's at, and that's been a long time coming. Something that took a lot of life growth to reach, I think. But I will say, in the beginning, I always did this with the goal of making it full time. I know it's a bit different than a lot of people's starts, but it was never a hobby. I always wanted it to be something I would do. I used it as the leverage to not go to college with my parents and say like, hey, I'm going to do this YouTube thing. I'm going to make it
Oh.
a career. And so, I mean, you know, the numbers changed. I remember making a video early on where I was like, my goal is 10,000 subscribers. I thought that was insurmountable. And, you know, obviously that adjusts, but, I think currently a lot of my goal has shifted to kind of just staying power, and I don't want to say notoriety like a bad thing, but it's less for me, it's less about the numbers and more just about like the relationships I have with different companies, with different sponsors, you know, with audiences and community. Because the YouTube algorithm game and the YouTube stat game is just so fluctuant and crazy, that it has been relieving to kind of feel established in a bit of a different way than just needing, you know, the views to be tip top shape every month.
Okay. Okay. So, I'm trying to think of how to transition this, because it's very clear, at least to me, that the focus for both of your brands has very much like gone two different directions. I feel, at least from the outside looking in, that Zach, you've been working with sponsors a lot longer. Pat, you just got your first sponsor for the channel, right? We're able to talk about that,
Yeah.
right? That's okay.
Oh yeah,
Okay,
yeah. I
okay.
mean, I've had like 2 or 3 sponsors.
Okay.
The thing that like people don't talk about is I daily there's probably like 5 to 10 emails that I get daily that if I click the wrong link or my channel could be gone. 5 to 10 times daily that happens. So
Happened to me.
Wait,
I am
can you tell me like what happened?
oh oh wait, to you or to Zach or me?
No, like so what are you referring to?
It's the same thing. We get emails from these fake sponsors that say like,
Oh.
click here to sign up, or in my case, they were saying like, here's a demo for the game, and then it's downloaded
A
some sort of
virus.
software that allowed them to take over my account.
Oh my
So
gosh.
I mean, Zach is like, this is Zach's topic, man. Zach is like a superstar.
Sure.
But I find myself more so paranoid at the fact that, do I really want to like do a sponsor in like potential? So I know that there's networks that like help with that, but from my experience, from the people that I've never been a part of a network, but from the people that I talk to, it's not worth having that network take part of what you make just so that you can get safe sponsors. So I've kind of stayed away from them, to be completely honest. I've had a few, but there's the fear there. Like this doesn't get spoken about too much, but yeah.
That's actually something that I want to talk to Ben from Crossing Minute about, is the fact that content creators do not often know their worth and the power that they wield on the internet. And I think what's really scary about independent content creators is the fact that, if you are tied to a brand, even for sponsors or even what you feature, because we can talk about the drama with Streamlabs with the past couple of weeks. It's like there's so much mental noise going on even before the content's moving forward. And I guess here's how we're going to transition this, gentlemen, is the fact that your content is so dependent on Nintendo. And I remember that there was almost crickets with Nook Talk because there weren't any updates, there wasn't anything happening, and you're just like, oh no. So do you feel that, I don't want to say do you feel limited by your success, but it's very clear from your YouTube views that although I feel like Switchforce had a pretty consistent, 5-figure viewership on specific videos up until Animal Crossing, because you have such a wide range of Nintendo news. But Pat, there was a clear change from like your video about Turnips 101 and how it just exploded from there. So with your two brands, which focus on a console and focuses on the success of a big brand that you have no control over, but let's be real, they should be hiring you. How do you, is there a limitation or is there a concern about what's going to happen to your channels in the next couple of years?
It's been something that has it's been tough to wrestle with. I think throughout, just because you are reliant on big game releases, and if you play it that way, it's such an ebb and flow roller coaster. Animal Crossing luckily has been a gift that keeps on giving in terms of content and community and popularity. I don't think anything has come close to it, nor will anything reach it in the near future. So that has been a humongous blessing, and I don't think it's negative to say like it's that kind of a game is why channels like Pat's were able to explode, so significantly, because it does have just such insane universal popularity. The one thing I did to try to combat that was my Good Morning Mario daily show, because it is personality based and also just kind of like any news that I find interesting. I'm less reliant on a new hot game and more just reliant on things happening, and things seem to happen all the time. I mean, there's some days where it's like, gosh, I'm really scraping the bottom of the barrel, but I did make a market shift from more gameplay to more news. And Ghost Rebel was all gameplay all the time for, 6, 7, 8, 9 years. And so that shift was it probably came later than it should have, but I'm glad I made that, because for me, having that reliable show that I know I do every day, and even if there's not enough stuff to talk about, I'll talk about a movie I saw, like having that, making my content the reliable thing as opposed to just always relying on Nintendo, has been helpful. But yeah, it definitely is tricky at times. Luckily, this console is not the Wii U, and it's got 100 million players, and I feel pretty good. Going forward, we're not going to have any drop off. But yeah, long story short, it can be very tricky.
I'm waiting for the next console to come out. So Zach has a what do I stay with Switch Force? Do I do Nintendo? Yeah. I'm gonna be very honest with you. I'm terrified. I'm constantly terrified because I know for a fact Animal Crossing is the sole reason why I blew up. I'm not gonna say, oh, I started putting more effort into. No, it was Animal Crossing. Mm-hmm. I will say this though. This year, going into this year, I was pretty like, man, this might be it, sort of thing. This might be like the finale, because I mean, luckily Animal Crossing got so much support this year. Well, at least towards the end. But last year, 2020, I think I got like 90,000 subscribers, which is nuts. And then, now I'm at like almost 130. So yeah, so it's like significantly less, but actually this year I was more successful, revenue wise, view wise, interaction wise. So maybe it's just me overthinking a lot, but I mean, as a channel, I got to realize that Animal Crossing is done. It's done. Like the final update just came out. And if we do get something else, I really don't think that like a Splatoon crossover is going to move the needle in terms of like growth and things. So, I mean, I can stream forever. I feel like I'm a decent streamer and I can, I have a good community around me, but, I've done things like the second channel, which is more personal and like doing something else. So there's ways that, you can combat it, but, it's definitely on my mind. Cause I have, my channel name is Nintendo Talk, but it's very much, it could be like Crossing Talk. Like it's not, I don't report. I actually don't like reporting on news. I like watching news, but I don't like being the guy like, oh, this happened. So.
Yeah. I think what's been very difficult, because we often demonize the day job because our parents had a specific sort of work life experience, and at least from my end, my parents couldn't really understand that no, in this economy you have to make money where you can. And so I often feel that content creators, I mean, I would love to see Grandpa Pat and Grandpa Zach doing Animal Crossing up until your 80s or 90s. I mean, like, that would be delightful. You already have the sweater, Pat. Like, come on.
Yeah, we can do it.
You do. So when it comes to thinking ahead with content creation, especially within the realms of gaming, how far ahead are you thinking? Because as you said, like, Animal Crossing is effectively done. And I have always argued that the franchise is very much beloved. And there are people who are starting to make their own Animal Crossing channels. They're playing retro gaming. Kay Daisy featured a lot of her old gameplay. There are people who just downloaded and started playing Animal Crossing. So I do argue that the content is still there, but where are you thinking ahead when it comes to, this is very personal, I'm sorry, but like when it comes to your life, in that is this just like a certain part of your life experience and where you're going from there? Is the day job going to be incorporated at some point?
I mean, I've been doing it full time for a little over a year.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm pretty, even though everything I just said, I feel like I'm pretty confident that I can keep it going. Just because Animal Crossing is done getting updated. Like you said, there's a healthy community now. There's, almost 40 million people who are, for the most part, new fans. So, they're going to want to go back to retro stuff. And there's always going to be that hardcore community that is going to want to see building streams, villager hunt streams. Am I going to want to be interested in that forever? Probably not, but you got to stay with it. I criticize, I don't know so much about Zach, but I criticize channels that kind of jumped off the wagon, and I was like, it's easy. Yeah, go do your Among Us stuff. Go do your, Sim stuff, but you got to stay with it, because then that audience leaves.
Mm-hmm.
And then when 2.0 came out, a lot of those channels tried to start it up again with not seeing the same success. Like, what do you expect? I mean, your community, you kind of do something else and then you expect them to come back. So I think I could stick with it for a long time. I'm pretty confident that I can make this a full, a long-term thing.
Sure.
But.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I've been at it for 11 years, so why not 11 more? I mean, I honestly, like, and maybe stupidly, don't really look that far ahead. I don't really think about where I'll go beyond this. I can't imagine that I'm interesting enough to make YouTube videos till I'm 70. I mean, maybe. I don't know what the space looks like. I would say, like, we are lucky in the sense that Nintendo is a very nostalgic company that scales throughout the ages. I don't think if we were playing Call of Duty, I'd be as hip, with all the sayings and the TikTok dances and all that. But Nintendo luckily does seem to have, like, my audience is primarily in the 25 to 34 range, which always blows me away because I usually assume YouTube audience is much younger, but that's where a lot of my audience sits at. And for the foreseeable future, I will be doing this. I personally can't see myself ever having a day job. I think maybe I do something spawns off this, or a new website pops up or something like that. I feel very confident because it has been so stable for so long that I can keep it so stable. But I know a lot of people think that's crazy. They say, like, YouTube could fall apart at any moment. You could, what if your channel just plummets at any moment? But I have, 120 months of evidence to show, like, okay, I can keep this going. And I think, at this point, Switchforce is known enough and I'm known enough that if it did collapse, I luckily think I have enough contacts where I could probably do something different in the gaming space. So right now, I'm here to stay for now. I don't have any exit strategy or future plans as of yet.
And that's okay, right? I mean, you're riding the hype, but you have the anxieties like every 30-something-year-old has.
Sure.
So what I do find really amazing, though, is I'm gonna fangirl for a minute, just a little, like 30 seconds, is the fact that Pat, when you were talking about the YouTuber that inspired you to get started, the both of you were huge inspirations for a lot of people, including myself. And when we talk about name rebranding, to put into context, my original YouTube channel was MK's Casual Content, which, like, what the heck is that? So I totally, yeah, right. And so it's really interesting to hear that the start of almost every content creator is roughly the same. And it's such a shame that we don't have these conversations. We don't have these special groups for content creators of, like, talking about sponsorships, what to look out for. But I think what's really difficult is a lot of young people specifically, but also some people with delusions of grandeur who've never, worked as an independent creator. And for reference, I'm a comic artist and, do my own stuff, marketing, everything. So I kind of had a bit of humble pie with that. What do you think is often not discussed when someone's like, Pat and Zach are super successful, I can do that too? What do you think is missing from that mindset when they are getting prepared to, put in their username and get that YouTube channel started? What do you think that a lot of people do not consider when it comes to really planning ahead for making a gaming channel specifically?
I think it's a very tough conversation, and I've even wrestled with this with my own younger siblings and friends. It's like, there's a 99.7% chance you won't go anywhere. But at the same time, you don't want to discourage people because all the biggest creators, most of them seem to pop up out of nowhere in unlikely situations and, unusual circumstances. I do think there's a bit of a blurring of, like, there's the PewDiePies and the Mr. Beasts, and then there's the kid that makes his Minecraft videos, and he's 8 years old. But the amount of, like, the in-between is just so vast. And for every, like Pat was saying, on one hand, 100,000 subscribers is small, but to millions of people, 100,000 would be like ultimate victory. Like you've reached fame, glory, the highest you could get. And I think, at least from my perspective, a lot of people, I think, kind of just look at the top and aren't seeing that, like, hey, you could still have a fun, successful, depending on your definition, channel that maybe has a small community of 5,000, and that's totally cool and way more likely. I don't want to ever be discouraging and tell someone not to start, but I don't know. I've shifted my tone in how I talk about it, because in the past I was like, this is so cool, YouTube is great, you should try it. And now I'm more like, okay, like take a peek at how many channels did Animal Crossing. And for every Pat, there was probably 1,000 others that didn't have that boom. And for every Switch channel, so it's just difficult, I think, to be supportive, but also realistic. I don't know if that answers your question, but that's where
I think it does, because I think that there's often, unfortunately, a capitalistic free market version of success. And so I guess to put into context, as you said, that's your definition, your aspirations of success grow as you grow. And so anyone who's like, I'm going to make 100,000 subscribers within the span of a year, and I don't have any editing understanding, or I don't even know how to play this game, and I can't afford the basic stuff, it's that's not realistic. So perhaps the argument that you're making is, you output 3 videos a day. I think Pat talked about it. Like you are a beast, sir. Yeah. And so I think what people often forget is that even there is a bit of luck when it comes to success and content creation, but that doesn't mean that it doesn't have value. And one of the arguments that I have on my channel is that you don't have to be viral to be valid. There's a lot of people who love smaller YouTubers because the chat goes slower. And I know that Pat has been talking about the sort of the anxiety that you miss comments now.
Oh, yeah.
It just flies by. And so I think there's a bit of a loss, and that's actually a really great question, is that is there a sense of loss now that you have leveled up in success and content creation, or the fact that the way that you interact with your community has changed? Does that make sense? I don't know if that's really a question, but like the idea that I do think there is a sense of loss from that really close-knit, that Q&A that you did at 400 subscribers, Pat, or that really tight-knit the trifecta with Switch Force, is that it was very community-oriented. And Pat's mentioned in the past, like, there seems to be 2 types of Animal Crossing content creators: the community-oriented and then the business sponsorship-oriented. And it's very clear which ones are focusing. So with where you're at now in, with providing news and getting sponsorship, has there been a sense of loss with your channel?
Well, first of all, I love small channels. I think half of the channels that I'm subscribed to probably have less than 10,000, because I just like the old school raw, someone in front of a camera. I just love it. I love people's thoughts and things like that. I feel like some of that has been lost, like you were saying. I mean, that Q&A, that 400 Q&A, I answered every question that was asked. So it's like, so yeah, I mean, especially with streaming, you have to pay attention to chat, but you also have to be like somewhat good and like do something in your stream. And that's why I focus so much on like memberships, because like you take your community and then you divide it more into like a smaller, more digestible thing, and I think that's what makes it feel special. But yeah, I mean, early on when I was doing Animal Crossing, like even Animal Crossing when it was blowing up, I was like, responding to every comment, and like I read most of the comments now, but there's no way that I can go on a video like with 80, 100,000 views and like see everything. I try to heart a lot of comments just to see like I have read it, but yeah, it does get lost. And I brought up like the anxiety of not seeing comments. People take it personally. They're like, man, I love this channel, but he never talks to me. And it's like, all right, try to be in a room with like 1,000 people and try to have it's tough to do. Yeah. So I do feel a little bit bad, but you have to scale it back. Like, for when I first started, I got a bad comment, ruined my day. Now it's just like, oh, okay. So it's like you kind of adjust your way of thinking, but yeah, gets lost.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's pretty spot on. For some reason, I feel like my community is pretty manageable. I don't know. why that is, but I feel like I have a good opportunity to respond to a bunch of people, with the Discord. And I know Pat has way more members than I do, but like the same members have been members since Animal Crossing came out, when I kind of started that whole thing. And my Twitter following on Switchforce is far smaller than it was on Ghost Robo. So something about just the way the channel has kind of fallen into place, like I feel like I have a pretty good grasp on the community. But at the same time, though, I can totally understand like feeling like it has ballooned to a point where maybe you're not as personal with it. For me, that's a good thing. I think in the past I was so intrinsically tied to my channel. Like, what would I do without it? And I did have to create some separation. So it's like, okay, I can put this down and go. I'm the same person. Pat can attest to it, but just like have something that isn't you doing YouTube. One of the curses and blessings of this as a job is you can do it 24/7. And that's a curse, and that's a blessing. You can constantly be working, you can constantly be gaining, you can constantly be growing, trying new things, experimenting, producing content. But at the same time, like I'm a little bit better at it now. But there was a long while where, I mean, even now, I guess it's hard for me to go a day without making a video. Like that is very tricky. And so I feel okay with where everything is kind of at, and I'm kind of maybe glad that I'm not as overwhelmed as I was previously.
You also have two different membership layouts, because the way that on your YouTube channel, Zach, it looks similar to the Twitch, like the one membership, if I'm remembering correctly. But Pat, you have like a Patreon layout where you have a very manageable and affordable for those who really can't afford $5 a month, and then you have it all the way to legend, where people can befriend you and they're getting Christmas cards with amiibos. That's really exciting. So
I don't even get a Christmas card, man.
You'll get
slander. There better be a Cranston amiibo in there. But so how do you treat your communities really within your brand? Because I would say that, as you've mentioned, Zach, that it seems that it's very different from the way that you approach it, Pat, and the way that you approach it. So do you want to like kind of talk about that for a little bit, if you would?
Like, what do you mean as far as like treating? What do you mean?
Well, so when it comes to, maybe I don't even know what I'm talking about, but like this,
just like memberships in general.
Yeah, like memberships, and the fact that I've seen on both of your respective channels is that you have people who are loyal to you. It's not about the game. It's about it's about what you've brought forth and how you've really affected people's lives. And so I would argue that community is a really big part of content creation, and that is going to continue on the success even long after Nintendo stops creating Animal Crossing New Horizons content and probably moves on to like Animal Crossing the satellite or on the moon or whatever they're doing. So, but I do think that you approach your memberships very different, with the expectations of how you're going to be interacting with your communities. That's where I was going with it.
Okay, yeah. It always goes back to what we were saying before, is like, I love interacting. And I think that Zach and I's channel is so different is because I stream way more than streaming is a giant part of my channel. And I don't know, I kind of made the business decision to have memberships a bigger part. Like I don't do a lot of sponsorships. Memberships, it's guaranteed. Like I could just look at that number and like, okay, I will definitely, no matter if videos flop, no matter like, that is guaranteed revenue. But it's all about like, communicating and like interacting with people. Like some channels don't even have memberships, which I think is crazy. If you're a YouTube channel, open them up, because it's just it's so great. Yeah,
I have aspirations. So so Zach, because you're not, I was actually surprised. I think I caught you doing the release of Metroid Dread, and I was like, wait, Zach streams? What? And so the way that you approach streaming, it's a different feel, it's a different vibe, because you're focusing on the game, and Animal Crossing is significantly less stressful than Metroid Dread. But so I'm really curious about, was it also a business decision as Animal Crossing kind of took off, Zach, that streaming didn't become more prevalent? Or are you on Twitch by any chance?
I'm not. No, I've never like, gelled with streaming perfectly. It's more draining for me.
Really?
I feel like, I feel like the videos are just. I'm a very upbeat, very enthusiastic person, and I used to lose my voice all the time, and it's just it takes a lot out of me. Not to say it's not fun, but maybe it's just that I've done it for so long, but I feel better with the cadence of videos. I like having a concurrent piece of content. I like it being there, and I think for me also, and this is probably just a very personality driven thing. I don't feel very accomplished when I complete a stream. I feel like I just played a game and I just was hanging out. And for me and just the way my mind works, I need to be able to see like, okay, I made 2 videos today. Like that's just like for my psyche, I just need to be able to see that for my own personal productivity. And frankly, I think I'm better at it. I think I'm a better video maker than I am a streamer. I think Pat is a far better conversationalist in the streams than I am. And some people just have their personality lends to one more than the other. And so I've made it like a fun community get together for big events like the release of 2.0 or like a Nintendo Direct or like I was really excited about Metroid Dread. And that's another reason why memberships aren't as big of a deal on my channel. If people want to be extra supportive, awesome. But I'm also aware that like I'm not going to be providing the kind of content plan that Pat is providing and the kind of experience that he's providing. So it's not something that I advertise really at all anymore.
Are you so it's very clear that you two, because you're close and you're friends, that you understand that your strengths, and are you okay with the fact that you are not a jack of all trades with like being the perfect streamer, the perfect content creator, the perfect businessman? Like it seems that, was there a point in your career where you realized that I found my niche and I'm happy with it and I'm gonna just roll with it? When did that happen for the both of you?
I think I'm going to twist your question a little, and
Sure.
it was more just like finding what I actually like doing, because I feel like I can do it all, and I've tried to do a plethora of different things throughout the year, and if I could do it, I wanted to do it because it was opportunity and it was growth, or it was whatever, and I think like just accepting like I don't like streaming every day, and just being okay that that's not for me, and that I think. Really, when Good Morning Mario started is when everything kind of became very clear. Because Pat, you're lucky we weren't friends like 2 years ago, because I would just constantly was like, what should I do with my channel? Where should I go from here? Should I be doing this? Should I be streaming more? Should I be streaming less? Oh, there was this rumor that streaming ruined your video views, and if you did both at the same time, it wasn't beneficial for your channel. And I was just a mess about it. And then I'd start streaming hardcore, and then I'd get tired of it, and then I'd start, and it really was. Probably the beginning of this year where I was like, I just don't want to do that, and that's okay. And like giving myself the space to just do that, even though other people were or weren't or whatever, and just making that decision for myself was really helpful.
Yeah. I honestly, I still don't think I found my niche. Like I feel like I do a lot of different types of content. If you notice, I'll stream for a long time, then I'll put out a design thing, and then I'll do a series video. So I still think I'm all over the place, but I feel like streaming is something now that, like, again, all back to community building. It's like I can get my voice heard by a lot of people streaming. Like, and I can the thing that I like about streaming is I can bring up an idea and I can look at the chat and I get immediate feedback. Yep. It's like I'm not like brainstorming, but that could also be bad too, because you have the hardcore fans, which you were saying, I have like people who just like me, and that's the goal. That's the goal for any YouTuber. But like, that's also, to a fault, because I could be like, hey guys, what do you think about a video of, me just playing with trees and hitting there could be a lot of people. Yeah, do it, man. But then it gets like 100, 1,000, 2,000 views, and it's not like where I want to be. So I gotta like take advice and criticism to a point, but I also have to use my own judgment with that. But I still don't think.
I was just gonna say, I think that's a lot of just sort of the differences of like stream sessions versus videos, because with a stream you can cater a bit more to those hardcore, because those are the people kind of uplifting you and keeping you going, even if it is 500 people or 1,000 people or whatever. it's a lot harder to make a video and feel good about it if it gets 500 views. So then you kind of have to sort of more ascertain, okay, what's the greater, popularity of this idea, or is this going to appeal to everybody? Is my hardcore going to still watch it because they support me, but it's still going to have far reach? And I think it's just two different avenues, kind of, that are going towards the same goal of creating content that is well liked and that brings success. And both of them have their own merit, and both of them clearly can work.
So with where you're at, and Pat, it's a great transition when you're talking about that. Like, I think people would be like, hey, can we have Moose play Animal Crossing for like 5 minutes and just have him like hit the console for a bit? And I swear that that'll be really exciting. But I would say that I think everyone at some point has a moment of is it Star Shock? Something like it's almost that they look at you, they're like, oh my gosh, you're famous, but you're so personable. And I think that as you've gotten larger, there's a lot of people that really look at your fame and they're just like, oh my gosh, notice me, senpai, right? So with that, as you've grown, it seems that along with professionalizing your content, you've professionalized your face, right? Where like the things that you talk about and you don't talk about, relationships, breakups, all of that stuff. And so I'm really curious, as you've gained that momentum, how have your communities treated you differently as you've started gaining that momentum with sponsorships and popularity, and it's just like being noticed in the chat is a big deal? How has that really affected you on the day-to-day when it comes to your channels?
Yeah, it's interesting. This is an interesting question, because like when you're first starting out, you have no expectations, and you're constantly getting, man, I wish your channel was bigger. Your channel should be way bigger. You get like those types of comments. But like when you are bigger to some people, then they start being critical, which I really like. I don't think I've ever, I mean, maybe people that don't know me come in and they judge me really quickly. But I feel like growth has only gotten the community closer, because it's different. When you're a content creator, you have to celebrate the most. Like, some people might not think it's a big deal, like me getting an apartment, right? I've been very like vocal about it, and that's like a small victory for me. But like, I've made it a bigger thing because like, everyone is in my business, whether I like it or not. But I've also chosen, there's two different types of people. There's someone who like is very open about what they go through, and then there's someone who's like, here's your video for the day, I'll see you tomorrow, or I'll see you in 2 days, or something like that. So I kind of do it to myself, but like celebrating little victories, we got a sponsorship, guys. We got, 1,000 new subscribers. In the grand scheme of things, that does nothing for the audience, but like it's a win because it's a community thing. So I've learned to just celebrate anything and everything. So,
and I will make the note that the Animal Crossing community is incredibly unique, and that most people are very positive.
Yeah.
If we were in any other streaming space, it would probably be a different scenario, and you'd probably be asking different questions and getting different responses. I can't think of the last time someone came into a stream I did and said something bad. And I don't know, Pat, you stream more, so you probably had some, but like that is absurd. Yeah, that is just so weird, and it's uniquely an Animal Crossing thing that this community is so, whatever words you want to use, nice, supportive, innocent, untainted by the internet. I don't know, whatever they are, like it's very, very different. With that being said, I definitely have kept things, like I said before, more separated for Switch Force than I did with Ghost Robo. Ghost Robo was very much, I'm Ghost Robo, and like, let's do everything. I did the apartment tours, and I did the, relationships and everything. And I don't, like, Switch Force is still about me, but I think something about it being more news and more whatever, there's less focus on needing to know all the different details. So it hasn't been something that's requested. And I think I hope I find a good medium of like, people still know me. They still know all my goofy mannerisms and the fact that I love tea and that I dress like a 7-year-old, but they don't, I'm not sharing every little detail that's going on with my family or whatnot. And I think also like, there's just sort of this like, oh, Zach's been here. So I feel like I'm a known quantity. And so maybe people are less excited. The come up is where people really care. Like Pat, in 3-4 years, like they probably won't care as much about your apartment. Like that's just my guess. You know, I think like when
sure.
you're growing, that's when they're really excited, they're really interested, really invested, and the people that you bring with you, like they want to know everything.
Mm-hmm.
I think people kind of view me a little differently, not good or bad, but just like, oh, like this old guy, he's
We want to know,
interesting.
Zach. We want to
Okay.
know everything still.
Bold of you to call yourself old, sir. Come on now.
Man, I look at those numbers, I'm like, I'm closer to 40 than 20. That's a scary thought.
It's the new 20, man. It's the new 20. But so I would argue, and I hope that you feel this completely genuine, is that you two perform an incredible, like a dual function. Is that, Zach, when I go to your channel, it's for putting on a Brewster beak. I have no idea where you got that with talking about Brewster and sharing news and really just hyping up the community. And then people go to Pat for that, you know, that Uncle Pat vibe where it's like, here's your content that is also really connecting to the specific brand. And then you have this person who further humanizes that experience. And so I think that you two play off each other really well with that regard. So yeah, I mean, I don't want you to like sell yourself too short, Zach. You worked your butt off to get where you are. And it's very clear.
I'm very proud of it.
Yeah.
I try to be humble with it, but yeah, it has taken a lot. And that's another thing. Like, I don't think people recognize like the video game part of it is a small part. The rest of it is emails and preparation, psyching yourself up, psyching yourself down, you know, like all the back and forth, prepping, planning. There's just so much. I mean, Good Morning Mario is a 10 to 14 minute show that takes multiple hours because of edits and preparation and browsing the internet for stories and how I'm going to frame it. And similarly, you know, anything we do Animal Crossing, Pat making the secret videos, it's much more than just like, you know, the 7 to 10 minutes you see on screen. So
yeah.
It's a lot, but it's also, I don't know. I feel like Pat and I are also very unique that we're kind of pure still. I don't know. I feel like we haven't been like tainted by this. And that's something else I'd say, like, maybe you don't want to get super big on YouTube. I feel like a lot of people that do, they end up either losing themselves, losing their health. It becomes very rat race, very intense, very chaotic. And I see countless people that they're not the same as they were. And maybe, Pat, that's some of the purity that you like in the smaller channels, is it's like, that's just the genuine person. And they're just doing it. And I think I'll speak just about Pat, so it doesn't sound, you know, tooting my own horn, but like, you're still a good guy. You're still you, and you're still the same person, you know, when I met you. And that's remarkable, because I don't think that's something that, I think it's hard to retain the bigger and bigger you get.
Yeah.
I mean,
go ahead.
and no slight to your channel at all, but like, you know, you get to a point where like people, like creators wouldn't do this, you know, they need to be paid, or like, you know, so it's like, I love doing this kind of stuff still, but yeah, I don't know. It's weird to think about. Obviously your goal is to get to that height, but yeah, it is scary when you actually, like, when you're there, or if you ever get there, it's like, yeah, that's a lot. So.
Well, we are kind of at the final minute, friends, about success in the realms of content creation. Is there anything that you would like to bring up that we didn't talk about? Is there something that you would like to tell the young upstarts at home about getting started? Or, I guess another question is, with mental health, and you've talked about the fear of losing yourself, is, you know, how do you prioritize self-care and, you know, boundaries and, you know, yourself over your channel on the regular, or do you do that?
Zach, with your 7 videos a day?
It's tough. I mean,
not 7.
It's not.
No,
It's like 2.
Oh, wait, when 2.0 came out.
Yeah, when 2.0 was great. But no, it's like, I'm very fortunate that I think I am a very mentally strong person. I have high patience. I have high emotional control. And so I'm able to kind of just push myself through what I need to push through. But it wasn't always that way. I don't know, catch-22. I'm lucky that I can just go. So I kind of always just go. But I will say, like, I have tried to take weekends to be 0 to 1 videos, which might be crazy to some people, but for me, that's a big deal. Like I try to, like having a day off feels really great. And that's something that I never did before. And so I do try to give myself the space and time. And the other thing, and I don't know if this just comes with age, it comes with confidence in yourself, but I feel a lot better knowing like if I don't do it now, it'll be okay. For years, I felt like, oh my God, the game's out at midnight. I have to get this up. If I'm not the first, for one of the first 5 to get it up, it has to be here. And when you're starting out, like that does matter more. It's the blessing of being an established presence that you can say, I'll cover it tomorrow, because you couldn't do that in the past. But I think at 31 now, like if I'm exhausted, I'm going to go to bed. It's just not worth it. And maybe at 23, maybe it would have been more worth it. But I would highly emphasize to anybody out there, whether you're just starting or have been doing it, you have one body, you have one bill of health, and you have as many videos and channels as you want to make. There'll be games every single week for here till the end of time. So I think it's super important to prioritize your body, your mind, your spirit over one more video, one more dollar. Too many people are running themselves into the ground, and maybe they're fine in their 20s, but I'm genuinely concerned for what the content creators today look like when they're 40, 50 years old, because I think the health strain is way more significant than maybe people are realizing.
Yeah. I mean, I'm assuming that there are going to be people watching this that are, looking for advice and things. Like, there's a lot of smaller channels that want to be in our position or bigger. I hope bigger. But yeah, I mean, the grind is something that people aren't ready for. Like, like Zach was saying, when he first started, he was ready for. He was in business mode. I got there around 300 subscribers. Like, I was ready. I was like, let's do this. So. The grind. I mean, I did this for 3.5 years without a paycheck. I mean, and that's tough to do because
which is
I was working
as all heck. Yeah,
I was doing like 50-hour weeks at my full-time job. So it's like you gotta be consistent. Consistency is so important. Like I've seen amazing channels come and go because they don't upload. I'm like, what are you doing? Like you have a following. People would kill for that. But yeah, consistency, even if you're starting out with nothing, I mean, I would still treat it as a job. I would still treat it as like something that you put love and time into, because people, I mean, if you do get a following, people will know very quickly, this guy's not serious. Like this person, they don't really care. So why should I? So yeah, people definitely recognize it. So
one more piece of advice, and this is sort of a tough love thing, is like, if it's not right for you, it's okay. Like, I see people, especially on the streaming side, where they're like, it's so hard and I'm struggling so much and it's affecting this. And it's like, just stop. Like as much as keep going if it is something that you want to pursue, and if you feel it is supportive of you and your personality and your lifestyle. If it feels like it's draining you or killing you, or the comments are eating you alive, or you're having emotional breakdowns, like, just because anyone can do it doesn't mean it's for everyone. And I think you have to have that personal awareness to know, like, I just don't want to be in the public sphere, or I just can't sit in front of my computer for 6 hours. Whatever it might be for you, it's okay to just be a viewer. Like that is an option as well.
Or, draw gyroids or emotes for other streamers.
Yeah, sure.
That was genius. I love that.
Thank you.
That was good.
Those were really awesome.
Yeah, because I'm on a fixed budget, it was like, what can I do to tell other streamers that I'm grateful for what they do for me and for other people?
So cool.
And that was what I did. But yeah, thank you. I do think that what's really important is success, as from the Merriam-Webster dictionary, it is so broad. And I think what we need to have is a bit of humble pie, and also that, hey, if I make 1,000 subscribers, that's great. If I make 1 million subscribers, it's great. But ultimately, just being true to who you are. And Pat, you've said this time and time again, is that the moment that a content creator stops trying to mimic other content creators, that's when they start, going off. And it may not be Zach level or Pat level or PewDiePie, I guess, but because I don't watch him. But like, you're at the end of the day, if it makes you happy, that's all that matters. And if there's a business aspect, then it just requires a little bit more work. But gentlemen, we're kind of at the end. Thank you so much for being part of this podcast. It was such a delight. And for those who live under a rock, where can they find you? Obviously.
You can find me just about anywhere at Nintendo Talk.
Mhm.
Pretty much, I mean, my content lives on YouTube, but you can also follow me Instagram, Twitter. So
Mhm.
thank you for having me, by the
Oh
way.
yeah. Thank you for doing this. Yes. And what about you, Zach? Where can because you have multiple different types of handles.
Yeah, I Switchforce on YouTube, the Switchforce on Twitter because somebody still has Switchforce, and then Zach
Fantastic.
_SF on Instagram because that's
Mhm.
kind of a fusion.
Mhm.
I'm on YouTube every day and Twitter most of the time. But thank you very much. Super cool
Yeah.
conversation.
Thank
I'm
you.
glad that we had the two of us to kind of give you different perspectives or hopefully provide a little
I
bit of
knew
both
for a
sides.
fact that YouTube bouncing off each other would be perfect because of Nook Talk. I was really worried about like, hey, can you two come together? Because I do you both
Or a
obviously
package deal.
well, yeah, but I also want you to like feel that I reached out to you both because you are individually incredible content creators.
Thank you so
Yeah.
much. Yeah.
So, friends, all of their information will be in the description below. Be sure to follow, like, subscribe, tell them that they're awesome, help them, reach their dreams and goals. And with that, we'll see you next time.